This child couldn't comprehend what had just happened, no matter how hard he tried. He couldn't move his body, and the surroundings were noisy. Could this really be hell? But perhaps even hell would be better than this place. This is where the hound life of Viker begins, a place that raises the wild offspring of the Baskerville family. And our protagonist Viker van Baskerville has returned as a child. Coincidentally, today is also the day the family head selects the best hounds for the family. The current head of the Baskerville family is Hugo le Baskerville, a cold-blooded man even towards his own children. He glanced over the children once and then frowned, judging them as worthless. There isn't a single exceptional child here. I think it's nothing but useless trash. At that moment, his gaze stopped on the only child lying quietly in the cradle. That child was none other than our Viker. After a moment of contemplation, Hugo decided to give an order to his subordinates. This quiet piece of trash seems a bit different. Take this child to the training ground. Seeing the very culprit who had falsely accused and killed him, Viker's eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. Now he had come to terms with the reality that he had returned as a child. Viker mustered all his strength to reach forward. The memories of his previous life had not faded in the slightest. In the past, he had lived as a hound, a bastard child who trained under the harshest conditions. He was a dog who had to do whatever it took to complete his missions, assassinations, reconnaissance, ambushes, threats, and so on. A dog who handled all the filthy tasks. Everything was done to help the Baskerville family become one of the 7 great families. The reason Viker remained blindly loyal was simple. He wanted to be acknowledged by the family and his father, Hugo. 10 years after the gate to the demon world opened, the war against the demons ended with humanity's victory. The reward given to the hound who had devoted himself entirely to the family was abandonment. The reason for Viker's execution was that this hunting dog knew too much. Viker clenched his tiny hand tightly and swore to himself that he would never live such a life again. He wanted to take revenge immediately. However, with this newborn body he couldn't do anything. Even turning over was an arduous task. But the best opportunity to become stronger was brought by Hugo himself. The training ground was the best place at the moment. Viker clenched both hands, his eyes filled with determined vengeance. He was determined to make the most of this rare opportunity. The training ground, without exaggeration, is a living hell, a place filled with swords, stained red with the fresh blood of Baskerville family children across generations. The children born into the Baskerville family must survive this place while still in diapers. The infants are thrown into a labyrinth of swords and must find their own way out. If they are lucky enough to survive, they will reach the Styx River to undergo an aptitude test. The Styx River is a legendary river that transforms a child's body into steel. However, only a few children can withstand it. Surviving in a cold-blooded family like Baskerville is no easy task. Finally, the day of the test arrived. Viker did not hesitate and continuously moved forward. Even as thousands of swords slashed and cut his flesh, his eyes showed no trace of hesitation in his previous life. Viker had failed alongside his siblings and did not gain the power from the Styx River. But this time will be different. He will seize as much of the Styx River's blessing as possible. After making it through the labyrinth of swords with countless wounds on his body, Viker immediately jumped into the Styx River, leaving the family members astonished. Viker's small body gradually sank to the riverbed. Now he no longer had the strength to struggle. Blood flowed from Viker's wounds, slowly dyeing the waters of the Styx River red. The water seeped through his wounds, permeating his body and bones. While this process had an immense strengthening effect, it also brought indescribable pain. Viker used the last of his strength to cover his nose and mouth with his hands. He needed to endure as long as possible if he wanted to gain the power to take revenge. Meanwhile, the subordinates on the shore were in a panic. "Young master, you must get out. You'll die if you stay in the water any longer. Get him out. We have to get him out." However, Hugo seemed incredibly intrigued. It had been a long time since he had seen such an interesting child. A sly smile appeared on Hugo's face as he turned to ask the butler, "Barry Mole, how long has that brat been in the river?" John Barry Mole, the head butler of the Baskerville family, who had served several generations of family heads, calmly replied to Hugo, "It's been 7 minutes." It must be noted that holding one's breath underwater for 7 minutes is extremely difficult for an adult, let alone for a child like Viker. Hugo was just thinking that his son had probably died because of his own foolish stunt when he suddenly noticed bubbles rising from the water approaching the river. He called out, "Son, you can come out now." Although Viker heard the call, he still had no intention of stopping. He would continue to absorb the power until the very end. As he ran out of air, Viker decided to swallow the Styx River water into his stomach. However, his body was still just that of a child. He choked on the water. Gradually, he lost consciousness and sank deeper into the bottomless river. And so Viker perished the end. Thank you all for watching the video. That is, if Hugo hadn't stepped in at the last moment to save his son, there was no way he would let such a promising hunting dog perish, just like that. Amused, Hugo grabbed Viker by the leg and checked his condition. This little one just staying in the Styx River wasn't enough for him. He even wanted to drink it. It has teeth already. After the examination, Hugo asked the butler, "What is this child's name?" Truly, a good father. From now on, Hugo would keep a close eye on his son, Viker van Baskervin. However, Hugo had no idea that Viker still had a sliver of consciousness left, if only he could strike right now. Keep rejoicing while you can. Hugo. For now, I need time to sharpen my fangs, and when the time comes, I will tear your head apart. The Baskervin family will disappear from history by my own hands, I, Viker van Baskervin. Upon waking up, Viker found himself back in the nursery room. This meant he had successfully absorbed the Styx River water. With this, Viker would have a much better starting point than before, bringing him closer to his plan for revenge. Just then, a maid approached, carrying a small chest in her hands. This was the item that the lady had instructed her to bring. After placing the chest down, the maid quickly left. It seemed that the item inside the chest was not something ordinary. Seeing this, Viker was curious, wondering why someone would give a gift to an illegitimate child like himself. At that moment, the chest slowly opened, releasing an aura of danger. Inside the chest were actually a pair of blood serpents. Even Viker, who had lived through life and death, was stunned. There was no way these rare monsters were just here to assassinate him. How could someone with the title of Madam act like this in the Baskervin family? She must be trying to reduce competition for her own son. Even the other children in the nursery rooms could be killed. The two blood serpents, once they slithered out of the chest, immediately bared their fangs and attacked Viker. If this had happened before, Viker would have certainly died. But ever since soaking in the Styx River, he was no longer the same. Viker grabbed both blood serpents by the necks with his hands, his face showing a thirst for blood. This was the cold-blooded, brutal Baskervin family. He knew Viker would end this family with his own hands. The two blood serpents were now being squeezed tightly, writhing in pain. Perhaps they realized they had made a foolish move. Soon after, the two blood serpents were torn to pieces. The next morning, the Baskervin family was utterly terrified. They witnessed with their own eyes a child peacefully sleeping next to the lifeless bodies of the two blood serpents. That day, the nanny was ordered to guard the child who had been tortured and executed. The reason for the deaths of the blood serpents remained a mystery to everyone. Only the young hunting dog Viker knew the truth. 8 years after the incident, Viker had grown up and was now studying alongside his siblings. Today's lesson was about the stages of a swordsman. If a swordsman cannot infuse their mana into their sword, they are called an apprentice swordsman. Once they can infuse just a bit of mana into the sword, they are called an adept swordsman. When the mana on the sword can be released externally in the form of aura, they are called a graduate swordsman. Finally, when the aura can gather and change form according to the will of the swordsman, they are called a master swordsman. The greatest of the Baskervin family, Hugo le Baskervin, was a master swordsman. While the other children marveled at the teacher's lecture, Viker was deep in thought, plotting his revenge. Currently, Hugo had already become a master swordsman, and Viker had to recover all the strength he had before his regression prior to his coming-of-age ceremony. The teacher was very pleased with this and thought to himself, "Young Master Viker is once again lost in deep thought." With the enhanced body he gained from soaking in the Styx River for 7 minutes, along with his genius analytical mind, far surpassing that of ordinary people, Viker's talents were on a completely different level compared to the other heirs. The family head would surely be thrilled to hear about the achievements Viker had attained. But little did he know, the 8-year-old child sitting there was already calculating how many years it would take for him to send his father to his grave, truly a filial son. Due to his exceptional abilities, Viker had attracted the attention of the 3 idiots. Oh, I mean the 3 identical triplets. After class, the triplets took Viker to the storage room and started mocking him. "Hey, you trashy half-breed. You're just an illegitimate bastard, yet there are strange rumors about you, you know. You soaked in Styx for 7 minutes and even managed to kill 2 poisonous blood serpents when you were just a newborn." Viker heard this without flinching. He knew these guys all too well. After all, they were the ones who falsely accused him and hunted him down while he was escaping. They were known as the Trident of Hugo Le Baskervin, because perhaps out of laziness, they all had the same name, Hybro Mibro and Lobro, being triplets. They had synchronized movements and often repeated each other's words like idiots. In the next 10 years, these triplets would become formidable enemies that Viker would have to face. That's why Viker decided to intimidate them first, to prevent any future trouble. Just when Viker didn't know what excuse to make to strike, Hybro pulled out a knife and threatened him. After soaking in the Styx River, the body becomes as tough as cold steel, immune to cuts from swords or daggers. That's what they had been told, so they believed Viker wouldn't die if they stabbed him right. As soon as he received his older brother's order, Lobro immediately restrained and gagged Viker. They wanted to test the rumors, and arrogantly said they would eat their own hands if Viker could last for 3 minutes. Ah, the naivety of youth. Viker decided to have a little fun with these kids. At first, the 3 brothers laughed and enjoyed themselves, but soon they became panic-stricken. Viker went for 10 minutes without even a hint of a change in expression. At that moment, the triplets realized that the rumors were entirely true. The one standing before them was a monster, but by now it was too late to back down. The price for their recklessness was Lobro's finger. Now he could only rate it a 9.5. Viker spat out the finger from his mouth and wiped the dark red blood from the corner of his lips. His eyes gleamed like a hunting dog's fixated on its prey in the dark. "Why didn't you just say you'd eat your hand?" The triplets were so scared that they nearly wet their pants, but they still tried to maintain their composure. As they were about to go find a priest to reattach the finger, Viker stopped them, who said you could leave. Hybro, furious, gripped the knife tightly and thrust it forcefully at Viker. "You bastard, did you forget we're older than you? The good news is thanks to this action, the 3 of us have verified the rumors. The bad news is the rumor is completely true." The blade could only pierce through the fabric of the shirt, not causing any harm to the skin that had been soaked in the Styx River. Viker grabbed Hybro's wrist and revealed a dangerous expression on his face. "This is Baskervin. When there is enough strength and talent, age doesn't matter. Let's play this game to the end, my dear brothers." Hybro finally reacted and shouted, "So all those rumors are true. And the reward for guessing correctly is a free dental adjustment from Viker the dentist." With just one punch, Hybro's entire set of teeth was shattered, his lips and teeth scattered all over the ground. Seeing that the other 2 brothers seemed to appreciate his dental service, Viker casually kicked Mibro in the mouth. Afterward, he picked up the knife from the ground and approached Lobro, who was crawling on the floor in fear. "Don't be afraid, you will heal if treated in time, but I won't let you leave this room. And at this rate, you'll be crippled for the rest of your lives, so I'll generously allow one of you to leave." The 3 brothers saw a glimmer of hope in the dark, and each of them wanted to be the one to escape from this monster. But life isn't like a dream. Viker threw the knife towards them and turned to leave. "That's your decision. I won't wait too long, so make up your minds quickly. At least one of you should live right." The 3 brothers looked at the knife on the ground and exchanged glances, sweat dripping from their faces in tension. Since they shared the same operating system, they knew exactly what their brothers were thinking. Of course, there was no brotherly love left. All 3 rushed at each other, fighting for the chance to survive from this moment on. The trident of the Baskervin family was shattered by itself, the mastermind behind it all. Viker smiled contentedly, knowing he had cut off a powerful arm of Hugo's future. In the family head's office, the head butler, John Barry Mole, was announcing some very important news. The family head has had another confrontation with the Mogu family at the Ruby Mine. The Mogu family is demanding the Ruby Mine within their territory. Hugo, upon hearing this, was not too concerned. There would be an opportunity to discuss this matter directly. Soon afterward, Hugo asked if there were any other issues that needed reporting. The head butler then informed him, in addition, the recent midterm evaluations at the children's castle showed that young Master Viker ranked first in the written exam. Hugo immediately showed interest and smiled cryptically. Over the past 8 years, he had been closely monitoring every piece of information about his son, and he was eagerly anticipating the upcoming practical exam that would take place in 5 days. At that moment, Barry Mole continued with another update regarding a large brawl among the young masters at the children's castle. Hugo, however, was only interested in whether any of the young masters had been killed so he could make sure to breed enough heirs truly a father of the year. Barry Mole then reported the details of the fight. No one died, but young Master Hybro's teeth were completely ruined. Young Master Mybro's jaw was caved in, and young Master Lowbro's left index finger was severed. They had been treated and recovered, but they were greatly harmed mentally after hearing this. Hugo wondered, aren't they really close to each other? I'm suspicious about them fighting among themselves. The next answer from Barry Mole surprised Hugo. They fought with another brother of theirs. The one who turned the three of them into that state is their younger brother 1 year younger. He is the young master who ranked number 1 in the recent exam, young Master Viker. Upon receiving this report, Hugo immediately summoned Viker to the family head's office. It seemed that Viker had anticipated this as he showed no signs of worry whatsoever. After exchanging pleasantries, Hugo got straight to the point. I heard you crippled the 3 brothers in the advanced class. At this moment, Viker showed no signs of regret and pretended to be innocently unaware. I heard they received special treatment, though. Barry Mole, seeing this, started to sweat and glanced at the family head. He had never seen anyone be so bold and disrespectful in front of Hugo. Hugo, feeling a bit irritated, spoke with a serious tone, repeating the matter. I'm not talking about their physical state. I'm talking about the fact that you've wounded their hearts since that day they started eating separately and stopped speaking to each other. Their combined 3-way attack was a masterpiece, but because of you, there has been a great rift between them. Viker listened to Hugo but only smiled faintly without saying a word. Seeing this, Hugo asked again, Don't you think you've done something wrong? Viker immediately responded, Wrong. What did I do wrong? Hugo, with his hands clasped in front of him, said seriously, Didn't you turn your brothers into broken ships? At this moment, Viker, with a cold expression, answered, But I'm stronger than they are. How could someone strong make a mistake? This was what Viker had learned from his hellish past life in the cold-blooded Baskerville family. Only the strong had the right to speak. Hugo remained calm and continued. Your older brothers were here before you arrived and they generously forgave you. You still don't feel any guilt. That statement was truly laughable. Viker nearly burst out laughing. He recalled the time before his regression when the youngest child of the family who had survived the fall of the Baskerville house came to meet Hugo directly. She, who had become a nun after all those years, came only to tell him that she had forgiven him. And after hearing that, Hugo had replied with a single sentence, I believe forgiveness is nothing more than an apology from the weak who are incapable of revenge. Now Viker used that exact same line to answer Hugo. Their souls found resonance in that moment. Both father and son exchanged sinister smiles and affectionate gazes. Hugo was thoroughly pleased with his son's answer. Strength is justice, and by that logic, weakness is a sin. It seemed Viker fully understood the Baskerville family's philosophy. As a reward, Hugo decided to let Viker go to the food storage and pick out anything he wanted to eat. But he was warned not to be too greedy. He could only take what he could carry with his own hands. Viker was absolutely thrilled with this reward. Without hesitation, he chose the one thing he wanted most: chocolate. Just before Viker left, Hugo called out to remind him, Son, the upcoming midterm evaluation. Make sure you perform well. And you must not lose to anyone from the main household. The moment Viker heard that, he immediately understood the hidden threat behind those words. If he didn't do well, there would be consequences holding back his anger. Viker agreed to the demand, then turned and left. Upon reaching the food storage, Barry Mole led Viker to the spot where the finest, most popular chocolate was kept. However, what Viker truly desired wasn't just any sweet treat. He wanted a type of cacao with an extremely strong flavor. After hearing his request, the chef handed him a bag of blood beans, a type of cacao bean known for its incredibly rich and intense taste. Just one single bean was enough to make 100 liters of chocolate. Viker immediately tried one on the spot. From the expression on his face, it was clear just how bitter the bean was standing nearby. Barry Mole watched and thought to himself that Viker was a cunning little devil, probably trying to find a loophole to get as much chocolate as possible. But instead, Viker simply asked to carry the bag of blood beans and leave with it nothing more. This left Barry Mole slightly confused, and even more intrigued. His curiosity about this young master only grew stronger. Viker wanted to receive chocolate, not because he wanted to eat it, but because the purpose of these blood beans would appear in the practical exam 5 days later. On that day, an unprecedented incident, a major crisis would occur within the Baskerville family. The Baskerville family was known to the world as the clan of madmen. The children born there were all rigorously trained. They had to climb steep mountains to build basic endurance after learning how to walk, and were not allowed to rest outside of designated times. When they slept, they had to do so with the corpse of a demonic beast or a small demon to adapt to harsh environments. Furthermore, their ration of 800,000 calories was not nearly enough to sustain such brutal training intensity. By the time that stage ended, they would be 8 years old. The young hunting dogs would then have to face evaluations accompanied by incredibly horrifying hardships. That was why the Baskerville family came to be known as the Clan of Madmen. And today, the young hunting dogs gathered at Mount Laru Elono, which according to Sister Google means Black Red Mountain, aka Black Red. This was a mountain filled with demonic creatures that had been captured at the borders of the Baskerville family's territory. When it was time for the practical exam to begin, the young hunting dogs were assembled in one place to receive instructions. All of them were guided by the lead hound, Pavi van Basker. Vin, the young masters. The content of the practical evaluation was extremely simple. Survive here for 1 full month and hunt down powerful demonic beasts. Those are the only 2 things you need to remember. You will receive 10 points for successfully saving someone's life, 30 points if you save them without getting seriously injured yourself, 50 points if you eliminate another young master, 70 points if you successfully hunt a demon beast and survive, and 90 points if you fulfill all the previously mentioned conditions. In addition, each person would have their own badge stealing. Another's badge would be counted as a bonus point. There will be no points if you die, and there's no way to achieve 100 points. I hope all of you remember the teachings of Lord Hugo. Being careless will result in immediate death. I advise you not to leave the forbidden areas, as Black Red Mountain has many dangerous unexplored zones. I suggest you stay within the area where we have tamed the demonic beasts. The lead hounds will secretly grade you during the competition. Meanwhile, a few young masters not paying attention to the rules were gossiping about Viker. The rumors about the aircraft were spreading, becoming hot news among the young masters. However, Viker didn't care at all about such trivial matters. He was excited because once again, he had set foot on the familiar Black Red Mountain. As for the triplets, they were now so mentally haunted that they didn't dare make eye contact with Viker. It was truly pitiful. After announcing the rules, Pavi rang the bell declaring the competition to begin. As soon as the bell rang, all the young hunting dogs immediately moved out, each of them wanting to secure the most advantageous position for themselves. Everyone had their own plan. Some relied on the experience of previous upperclassmen. Others formed groups to prepare to steal points. Each of them wanted to take the first place and prove their skills to the family head. After everyone left, Pavi puffed on a cigarette and reflected on this exam. This exam didn't encourage killing others, but it didn't forbid it either. It was simply not encouraged. Because there would be point deductions for killing someone, they would all try their best to avoid killing others with their own hands. But because there were some lead hounds keeping watch, death would be kept to a minimum, and Pavi had nothing to worry about. At this moment, the further Viker went, the closer he got to the unexplored area. The lead hound following him began to worry. Viker was a genius who had displayed exceptional skills from a young age, and many people were eager to see what he would showcase in this exam. After a while of searching, Viker stopped under a large tree. He waved his staff around while intentionally speaking loudly. "This ground has to be soft enough. Now I'll decide where I'll stay for the time being. It's time for me to enjoy my vacation, isn't it?" Hearing the words vacation made the lead hound have a bad feeling. While the other young hunting dogs were frantically fighting both the demonic beasts and humans, Viker leisurely began building his shelter. All he did was sleep, and spent a few days digging a hole. Aside from that, Viker only went hunting for food to eat and to gather firewood. The lead hound began to feel disappointed with this so-called genius. He decided to ignore Viker and go look for someone else more interesting to follow. But just as he left, Viker flashed a sly smile. By the campfire, he sat reminiscing about the old memories of fighting alongside his teammates. Now the obstacles had disappeared, and Viker's preparations were complete. The hunt had officially begun. A few days later, inside an unexplored area, Viker was strolling, searching for his prey. This place looked dangerous, but all of these were Viker's backyard when he was a scout. He had everything in the palm of his hand and could move around easily without any worries. After a while of searching, Viker found his target. It was a pile of shit. Yes, you heard that right. Our protagonist spent several days searching for a pile of shit, and it was even burning like a temple. And the owner of this pile of shit, of course, wasn't happy with someone staring at his shit. It was a demonic beast, its whole body aflame, known as the Hellhound. Let me enlighten you with some basic information about this demonic creature. Danger level B+, size 3 meters, encountered at Black Red Mountain, second slope. A hellhound in its mouth is a creature that brings disaster to anyone who encounters it. Even a single bite can lead to continuous death. Sulphurous fire spews from its eyes and mouth, originating from the very depths of hell, and cannot be extinguished until it has burned through all the life of its target. These demonic creatures are engulfed in hellfire, the Hellhounds, before their regression could only be faced by Viker at the age of 18, so naturally a direct confrontation would be too much for an 8-year-old child. However, there is a way for a child to defeat the Hellhound, and that is the method Viker was preparing to use. Before Viker and the Hellhound could exchange any greetings, they rushed toward each other in haste. However, Viker had no intention of attacking directly. He quickly dodged. The first weakness of the Hellhound was that it could only move in a straight line and needed quite a long time to change direction. After missing the target, the Hellhound suddenly hesitated and did not attack immediately. This was due to its second weakness. For some reason, these demonic creatures could not cross water no matter how small the amount was. Viker quickly poured a bottle of water in front of him, forcing the Hellhound to attack in an arc. At that point, its speed would slow down, creating an opportunity for Viker to strike. As the Hellhound approached Viker, it opened its foul mouth to attack. That was the moment Viker had been waiting for. He quickly pulled a blood bean from his pocket and threw it into the Hellhound's mouth. Then he smoothly dodged the attack for chocolate hounds. This was a deadly poison. And with the blood bean capable of producing 100 liters of chocolate, the toxicity was magnified hundreds of times. The Hellhound, unable to do anything, collapsed right there, its mouth frothing, its body trembling uncontrollably. Could this be considered the protagonist poisoning a dog? At this point, the Hellhound had not been completely destroyed, so it needed one final strike. Its heart and stomach were protected by very sturdy ribs, so Viker's target was its kidneys. Viker decisively used his sword to send the Hellhound on its way. In his past life, his hands were stained with the blood of both humans and monsters, so he felt no emotion as he struck, just like a soulless killing machine. After the Hellhound breathed its last breath, the hellfire on its body also extinguished. A mysterious blue energy flew out from the wound and into Viker's palm. When someone defeats monsters, their experience points or karmic burden are absorbed into the body, making the person stronger. In simple terms, it's like leveling up from fighting monsters. After leveling up, the sword in Viker's hand became much lighter at this rate. It wouldn't be long before his strength matched that of his past life. Viker was now curious about how Hugo would react when an 8-year-old child defeated a B-rank dangerous monster like the Hellhound. With what he had accomplished, Viker was already certain of his top position. Now it was time to think about the reward, a reward he could never have dreamed of in his past life. At present, no one knew the exact value of it. But bragging early usually leads to trouble. Just as Viker was about to decapitate the Hellhound, a pack of Hellhounds circled around him. It seemed they had come to avenge their fallen comrade lying on the ground. Viker remained unshaken and immediately decapitated the Hellhound. After all, he still had plenty of blood beans left, so the pack of dogs wasn't a major issue. Suddenly, the Hellhounds became frightened and started retreating. This definitely wasn't good. Hellhounds never retreat, even if it means dying. At that moment, Viker sensed danger from behind and quickly turned around. Standing before him was a gigantic 3-headed Hellhound CBZ. It seemed like the protagonist had quite the connection with dogs, huh? 97. The 3-headed Hellhound CBZ was a monster of A+ danger level. A creature this dangerous shouldn't have appeared in this area. After closely observing, Viker noticed the arrow wounds all over its body. The wounds were still bleeding, indicating that it had recently been attacked by humans. On the other side of this mountain was the territory of the barbarian tribe. At this thought, Viker's face lit up with immense joy. If this monster had been hunted all the way here by the barbarian tribe, this was a golden opportunity. An A+ level creature with fatal wounds was a prime target that Viker couldn't pass up. He would have to take it down, even if it meant using everything at his disposal. Viker had hidden all of his abilities within the Baskerville clan. His swordsmanship had reached the level of an advanced swordsman. His mastery of Baskervilles sword techniques had reached a level that only hellhounds could achieve in their maturity. Viker confidently drew his sword and charged forward, confronting the three-headed CBZ dog head-on. Both sides were locked in a fierce struggle, with neither able to dominate the other. However, due to the three-headed dog's severe injuries, it seemed likely that Viker would be the one to emerge victorious in this battle of endurance. Before his reincarnation, Viker's swordsmanship had been honed to perfection, leaving no wasted movements when killing his opponents, on top of that his body had been enhanced by the Styx River. The weapons Viker possessed were more than enough to inflict damage on a three-headed CBZ dog. But that was only what he believed. A moment of carelessness gave the three-headed CBZ dog an opportunity to strike with its deadly claws. Viker was blown far away and slammed heavily into a tree trunk, causing him to lose consciousness. While our protagonist Viker was taking a nap, let's take a moment to dive deeper into some additional details about the three-headed CBZ dog. Danger level A+, size 7, location, 7th floor of Black Red Mountain. Nickname Guardian of Hell. It takes no pleasure in the souls descending into hell, but as soon as a soul tries to leave hell, it will tear those souls apart. It resides in the deepest part of hell, where all souls end up. It is the strongest monster among dog-like species. Now let's get back to the fight. Come on, Viker. Due to the strong impact, he lost consciousness for a few seconds. Luckily, he woke up in time, otherwise he would have become dog food. After being attacked by CBZ, Viker's entire left arm was in pain. Luckily, due to the effect of the river Styx, his arm was only slightly injured. An ordinary person would have been crippled on the spot. But now is not the time to rejoice. The offspring of the three-headed CBZ are continuously attacking. If he continues to get hit, Viker will have a hard time surviving. This is truly a difficult situation. But even in this situation, a seasoned hunter always finds the best way. The best way to do things now is the 36th stratagem. Retreating is the best option. If he doesn't fight back, he can only run. What else can he do? Now, if the three-headed dog CBZ wasn't injured, Viker would have been caught up and torn to pieces already. After a while of running away, the boundary fence was right in front of Viker. If he could reach the shelter built beforehand, this plan would succeed. If he got caught before that, he would be done for. The three-headed dog CBZ ignored the fence blocking its path and charged forward. Now nothing could stop it from pursuing its target. After a chase in the truest sense of the word, Viker found his shelter. After accurately judging the distance, he jumped far forward. The three-headed dog CBZ saw this and jumped after him, using its sharp teeth to snap at its prey. But just as it was about to reach its target, it stepped into the pit trap that Viker had dug earlier. The three-headed dog CBZ was pierced by countless sharp stakes in the pit and howled in pain. At this moment, Viker could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He couldn't believe that the trap he used against the Hellhound pack would actually be used to catch CBZ. Just like the Hellhounds, CBZ was also a purebred bloodhound. The blood essence Viker coated the stakes with acted like poison. Two of CBZ's heads began to foam at the mouth and lose consciousness. Only the middle head was still trying to resist the poison spreading throughout its body. It seemed that high-level monsters were not so easy to defeat with just one blow. At this moment, Viker used all his remaining strength to throw the prepared wooden stake towards the three-headed dog CBZ. But obviously the wooden stake could not pierce through the tough skin of the high-level monster and was knocked far away. The three-headed dog CBZ suddenly roared in pain. Viker also didn't hesitate and moved forward. Wasn't he afraid of death? Viker walked while counting his footsteps. When he reached the 7th step, he was standing in front of CBZ. The remaining head of CBZ suddenly trembled violently and then foamed at the mouth. Could this be what they call the protagonist's aura? There's no such thing. It was all because of the spear that was thrown earlier. It caused a small scratch on CBZ. And that was all it took for the poison of the blood serpent on the spearhead to take effect. It was indeed, as rumored, just one bite from the blood serpent makes it difficult to take 7 steps. Luckily, when he was young, Viker had kept the blood serpent's venom in case he needed it. This was indeed a difficult battle. A moment's hesitation could have meant certain death at any time. The energy from CBZ after its death became a tremendous source of power for Viker. Now he just needed to figure out how to deal with the corpse. The cause of CBZ's death was obvious, and Viker would soon be suspected. But before that, Viker had something important to do. CBZ was a gatekeeper monster with a habit of protecting its territory. There must be a dungeon nearby. A dungeon is a strange place filled with treasures, and sometimes it is also the dwelling place of powerful demons. After a moment of thought, Viker made his final decision. It was likely that the dungeon was empty when the gatekeeper disappeared. If he disguised himself with CBZ's scent, he could avoid confronting most of the demons. Humus, dry leaves, broken branches, footprints, and leftover saliva. He would follow these traces to return. After searching for a long time, Viker finally found the dungeon that CBZ guarded. In his past life's memories, Viker had come here 10 years later, at which time this place was empty. But now it was different. Mixed with the musty smell, Viker could smell mana. He was certain that no one had touched this place yet. This dungeon seemed quite deep. The light couldn't reach the end of the path. Despite that, Viker was not worried at all, but rather unusually excited. He was eagerly anticipating the treasure inside this dungeon. The deeper he went into the dungeon, the more ruby veins appeared along the walls. It seemed that this place was connected to Crimson Mountain, a branch of Black-Red Mountain. After exploring for a while, Viker finally saw the light at the end of the path that was the location inside the dungeon. After checking that there were no traps at the entrance, Viker cautiously entered. This dungeon was a small room. In the middle of the room was a large stone pedestal with a glowing magical artifact. Viker was immediately drawn to this creation. When he approached the pedestal, he discovered a skeleton lying next to it. Viker carefully assessed the condition of the skeleton. There were injuries all over the body, as if it had been slashed wildly by a knife. The blood had also dried up completely. It seemed like it had been quite some time. Beside the skeleton was a piece of paper covered in writing. From the writing style, it could be recognized that this person was also a member of the Baskerville family. Right now, my name is no longer important, so it can be anything. I will call myself Ken. I don't see the need to stain this clean paper with my real name. I am writing this down because I want those who come after me not to make the same mistakes I did. The family legend told that this place was an ancient tomb, and my brother Aben accidentally found it. We tried to explore this dungeon. We annihilated countless monsters and reached this stone chamber, then encountered an ultimate riddle here, and this riddle has held us back for a very, very long time, for a full 3 years. Reading this, Viker could guess that the two brothers were extremely eager for the treasure here. Then he also found the ultimate riddle inscribed on the stone pillar. What is one when entering but becomes two inside? Only when it is one can it leave. Viker continued reading the content on the paper. With our limited knowledge of riddles, my brother and I pondered for a very long time, and we both came to the same conclusion. We are twins. When we were in our mother's womb, we were one, but when we were born, we were separated into two. Meaning only one of us can leave with the treasure we obtained, right? That also means there will have to be a death match. In the end, after a fierce and prolonged battle, I killed my brother. Now there is only one person left in this place. But even so, nothing has changed here. The two of us are now one, but I still haven't received anything. I killed my younger brother. I killed him. I killed him. After endless regret, I decided to leave this place. If anyone is brave enough to come here, I want to tell you one thing. Leave this place immediately. All this place does is drive people crazy with greed. There is nothing to take in this cave. After reading the content on the paper, Viker casually threw it away without a care. In short, his point was that even if you overcome everything to get here, there's no reward at all. But I'm not a twin. The riddle remains exactly the same meaning. Ken and Aben misinterpreted it. Viker then thought for a long while. He was certain that the solution was somewhere around here. A dungeon that cannot be explored does not exist. And then looking at his shadow, Viker had the answer to the riddle. So that's what it was. Ken and Aben were just unlucky brothers. Because there were two of them. They were stuck with their situation and couldn't solve the riddle. The dark tunnel contrasted with the brightly lit stone. The answer to the riddle was the dungeon itself. When we enter, we are one with the dark tunnel. But the moment we reach this place, we become two because of the light from the ruby. So, to make it dark again, the far end of the stone will open. The answer is my shadow. As soon as he finished speaking, Viker crushed the ruby with his hand. From within the fragments of the ruby, a mysterious power emerged, splitting the stone wall in front of Viker in two. Viker's eyes immediately lit up, and he couldn't help but smile with joy. So this is what the two brothers fought each other to the death. For could this be the sacred object of the demon cave? In the secret room was another stone pedestal. Sticking out of it was a mysterious sword, but it had no substance. Above the pedestal was inscribed a line, "Only the blood of the Baskerville clan can draw." Nuziel Bab reading. This name caused Viker to shout in surprise. This is Nuzeelbab. This sacred artifact can be found in a place like this. I remember seeing an illustration of this sword in a book of mythology I read in my previous life. The gluttonous demon Nuzeelbab in ancient mythology once mentioned the great evil spirits that had occupied the land. There were a total of 7 calamities corresponding to the 7 deadly sins. To stop those 7 calamities, the leaders of the 7 clans stood up to fight each demon of the 7 deadly sins. At that time, the demon that the Baskerville clan faced was the gluttonous fly demon Nuzeelbab. Since then, what remained of Nuzeelbab was sealed within the territory of the Baskerville clan, and the demonic energy that Nuzeelbab released attracted monsters, or at least that's what the mythology said, but no one believed it. However, that legend was true, and in the future this sword would fall into the hands of a demon, bringing death to countless human warriors on the battlefield. But in this life, the same thing will not happen again anyway. It will belong to me now. Viker did not hesitate and reached out to grab the sword. Countless blood-red streams of energy pierced through his hand. After undergoing an extremely painful assimilation process, the sword became one with Viker. A sword crystallized from the remnants of a demon. How many times stronger would Viker be in this life? Compared to his previous one, it was truly something to look forward to. After drawing the sword, Viker checked the dungeon again. Only after confirming that nothing was left behind did he prepare to leave. Just at this moment, Viker suddenly became dizzy, and then fell to his knees on the ground. This didn't seem like dizziness, but more like a feeling of hunger and thirst. Viker could feel the sword Nuzeelbab screaming to be fed. It seemed to be draining all his strength. Indeed, there was no power that came without a price. If this continued, Viker would be completely drained. After struggling for a while, Viker crawled out of the dark dungeon. A frantic appetite made him feel like his stomach was being torn apart. His sense of smell due to the hunger became more sensitive than usual. Viker could smell something very delicious nearby. The sword Nuzeelbab seemed to sense it too. It automatically reached out, guiding Viker in the direction he needed to go. Viker had no other choice but to move forward. Unexpectedly, what the sword Nuzeelbab led him to was the corpse of the 3-headed dog CBZ. Seeing this, Viker prepared to make 7-course dog meat to eat and stave off his hunger. But it turned out that the sword Nuzeelbab abstained from eating dog meat, so the sword automatically plunged into CBZ's corpse and began to suck blood. The blood flowing through Nuzeelbab made Viker feel as if his stomach had come back to life. Perhaps being sealed for 1,000 years had made Nuzeelbab extremely hungry. Not only the corpse but all the surrounding trees and land were sucked dry, devoid of any life. At this rate, the entire Black-Red Mountain would become a dead land. Fortunately, Nuzeelbab stopped. It seemed quite satisfied with this meal. Just at this moment, information about Nuzeelbab's unique skill appeared in Viker's mind. Nuzeelbab's ravenous hunger. It was said that it could turn an opponent's skills into its own. It could absorb an infinite number of skills, and those who were absorbed would be completely annihilated. But it seemed that because this was a corpse, there was a maximum limit to the skills Viker could absorb. The skill he received from CBZ was Hellhound's Blood. This skill would cause even the smallest scratch to bleed a terrifying amount of blood. This was indeed a good skill, but it wasn't CBZ's strongest skill. As if sensing its master's desire, Nuzeelbab released its tendril and continued to suck CBZ's blood. Although Viker was somewhat looking forward to the confirmed skill, he still didn't forget to remind it, "You can't eat it all. It will be difficult to explain when they examine it later because the corpse will be completely damaged." But Nuzeelbab didn't care and continued to frantically suck blood. Seeing this, Viker smacked it indeed. It only listened when force was used. This time all 3 skill slots of Nuzeelbab were filled. A+ grade Scorch CBZ, B+ grade Hellhound's Blood, and finally F grade Brown Rat Regeneration. Turns out even the corpse of the brown rat beneath CBZ was absorbed. Viker held the brown rat's corpse in his hand and began to assess this harvest. Obtaining the Scorch skill from CBZ was truly a great gain. A person would die instantly if hit by this skill, and the sensation would be even more terrifying than being burned alive. I've already prepared a monster corpse for the practical exam, so I just need to relax until the evaluation ends right. After a month of hardship, the young hellhounds of the Baskerville clan returned after completing their practical exam. The evaluation proceeded immediately afterward, and the corpses of the monsters they hunted would be crafted into shields, swords, necklaces, and so on, then returned as spoils of war. And one of the monster corpses brought back shocked all the guide dogs present. Hugo, after hearing the news, had to ask again to confirm who caught what. Chief Butler Barry Mole then reported the details of the incident. Young Master Viker van Basker, then 8 years old, had accidentally passed through an unexplored area during the exam and hunted a CBZ, a dangerous A+ level monster. Hugo calmly clasped his hands and sat on the chair, then asked, "Are you talking about the three-headed dog CBZ, highly regarded by the Guardian Knights Association?" Barry Mole then reported that the CBZ had been previously injured by savage tribes and had been poisoned after hearing this. Hugo wanted to know what kind of poison was potent enough to take down a CBZ and how the heck it got poisoned. But the butler reported everything recorded in the hunting log, and when he tried to inquire further, Viker evaded him on the grounds of fatigue. Hugo then revealed a joyful expression. This kid is quite cunning. Knowledge is power, and power is value. Viker was now even more highly regarded in Hugo's eyes, which was even more beneficial to his revenge plan. Just at this moment, Barry Mole spoke up, confessing, "I was also very surprised to think that talent like his came from the Van lineage and not the Lale." Before he could finish speaking, Hugo interrupted. "You don't understand me. I am different from the previous family heads. I don't care about bloodlines when I raise a hunting dog. It doesn't matter to me if it comes from the royal family or a brothel. All I care about is talent and determination. I say even weaklings can come from good bloodlines and vice versa. Do you understand what I mean?" Barry Mole realized he had misspoke and immediately apologized. Fortunately, Hugo was in a good mood, so he would be forgiven. And immediately after Viker was summoned to the family head's office, just like before, Viker was not worried at all, but rather somewhat looking forward to it. Before the father and son could even exchange greetings, Hugo went straight to the point. "I heard that you killed a CBZ in the practical exam. How did you manage that?" Viker didn't hesitate and replied, "I fed it chocolate to kill it. Chocolate is actually a deadly poison for hellhounds." Hugo, knowing the reason, wasn't too surprised. He then asked Viker, "I heard that you didn't give Barry Mole a proper answer when he asked specifically about the hunt. Why is that?" Viker replied with a cold face, "Because he is not my master." When Hugo asked who his master was, he immediately replied, "Because I am a member of the family. The family head is my master. Who else could it be with his experience as a loyal hunting dog in his previous life?" Viker knew exactly how to answer correctly. And that answer pleased Hugo immensely. He looked at Viker and gave a sinister smile. "You have learned very well. As a reward, the monster corpse you caught will be yours. And because you came in first place, I will grant you one wish." This was the sentence Viker had been waiting for. With it, he would be able to obtain what he desired. Without hesitation, Viker used this rare opportunity to request permission to enter the Grand Library. Just as its name suggested, the Grand Library was an enormous library located in the deepest part of the Baskerville clan's main stronghold. It was one of the largest libraries in the Empire and housed tens of thousands of books. Upon hearing this, Hugo immediately became serious. The Grand Library. Do you know that only the family head, the deputy family head, and core members are allowed to enter there? Viker, although disappointed, had no choice but to give up. He planned to find a way to sneak in there later. Just at this moment, Hugo spoke up. "You can enter. In the deepest part of the library, I want you to read Baskerville Sword Art Form 6, which is located in the restricted area, Form 6. Viker was extremely surprised by this decision. Baskerville Sword Art Form 6. Hugo was allowing his illegitimate child to read that sword art. There had never been a case where an illegitimate child with the middle name Van had ever learned. Form 4. I don't need to get so worked up in the end. It's just Form 6. Currently, Hugo had reached Form 7 in his previous life. He could execute up to Form 9. I still haven't forgotten the insults I received for being Hugo's illegitimate child. In this life, I will surpass Hugo because I can obtain the sacred text of swordsmanship containing the pure and true essence of Baskerville. It was discovered later in my previous life and written by the first family head who eliminated one of the 7 calamities. And the person who will give me the sacred text of swordsmanship is Hugo Le Baskerville. He will be the one to give it to me, and he won't know the value of what he's handing over. Both of them had their own intentions, Everyone wanted to achieve a certain goal, so who would be the one to succeed? After leaving Hugo's office, Viker immediately went to the Grand Library. This place was guarded extremely carefully, and very few people were allowed to visit it in his previous life. Viker had never once been allowed to set foot in this place. Now, witnessing firsthand all the sacred texts containing the sword techniques he wanted to learn, Viker had an indescribable emotion. Within the Baskerville clan, no matter how much mana an illegitimate child possessed, they were not allowed to learn sword techniques beyond Fang 4. This was an internal policy of the clan to ensure that pawns originally intended to be hunting dogs would not be able to bear their fangs and threaten the clan's descendants, those who held the role of master. After going deep inside the library, Viker found the sword technique that Hugo wanted him to learn. This was a sword technique belonging to Fang 6, something Viker would never have dreamed of before his regression. Perhaps Hugo thought it was impossible for an 8-year-old kid to memorize this in just one day. However, before his regression, Viker had studied the theories and assumptions behind the sword techniques from Fang 1 to Fang 4, like a madman, to the point where he could quite accurately predict the doctrines behind Fang 5, even without ever having learned it after learning Fang 4. Viker had once had to sever his mana connection, and that was also the reason why he couldn't use Fang 5. The Baskerville clan's sword techniques are classified by the number of fangs for each level. Level 1 is 1 fang. Level 2 is 2 fangs. It is extremely distinctive with a deep red aura running along the sword's blade as the fangs appear. But Viker didn't care about Fang 6 today. He came here for a different purpose, something even higher. That's why he only skimmed through the book on Fang 6, and then put it back in its original place after doing what Hugo wanted. Viker left the inner area of the library. The 2 guards were very surprised to see this young Master Viker. Have you already left if you intended to leave to retrieve something you forgot? Please allow us to get it for you. But of course, Viker couldn't leave without getting what he wanted. He told the guards that he would skim through a few more sacred texts before leaving and told them to go back to work. The 2 guards thought Viker was a fool who didn't understand the value of the sacred texts deep within the library and was instead reading miscellaneous jumbled ones. But Viker didn't care what they thought, because there was no way they could know that within that dusty pile of miscellaneous sacred texts lay a treasure waiting to be unearthed. After searching for a while, Viker found what he was looking for. The book was titled Hidden Fang. Holding the book in his hand, he couldn't contain the joy in his heart. With this, he would surely be able to take revenge. Hidden Fang was a simple sacred text about the first fang that even the children of the Baskerville clan wouldn't bother to read. That was because the middle pages of the sacred text had been torn out. No wonder it was classified as a low-grade miscellaneous sacred text. However, Viker knew the true value of this book. Before his regression, the hunting dog team that Viker was a part of had found a strange sacred artifact located on the border area at the peak of Black Red Mountain. It was a piece of paper about swordsmanship, a page torn from a sacred text. A page from a sacred text of sword techniques, written in the handwriting of the Baskerville clan. Sensing something was wrong with this, Hugo ordered his subordinates to find the book within the entire Grand Library. That book was a sacred text of sword techniques called Hidden Fang. This sacred text was written by the first head of the Baskerville clan himself, detailing how to reach the 10th fang of the Baskerville clan. Driven mad by the thought of the 10th fang, Hugo unleashed the hunting dogs of the clan to find the whereabouts of the remaining 6 pages. Knowing that the remaining pages were carefully hidden within the other 7 powerful clans, Hugo declared war on the other families and unleashed the hunting dogs to attack anyone who dared to resist. After countless lives of the hunting dogs had been sacrificed, Viker and his comrades finally found and offered the remaining pages to Hugo. And the reward for all that was to have their heads chopped off. Recalling the past, Viker couldn't contain his hatred. It was truly a foolish life that he never wanted to repeat in his previous life. Thanks to this sacred text, Hugo had surpassed the 7th fang and reached the 9th fang. He had used the blood and flesh of the hunting dogs as stepping stones. But in this life, that would not happen. The hunting dog who had searched and offered all those pages was Viker. He still clearly remembered the information on the missing pages. The reason he couldn't climb to a level higher than Fang 4 was because he had never touched the sacred text containing the fundamental elements. After carefully reading every word in the sacred text, Viker understood all the mysteries of the past. No wonder most people would treat this book as a low-grade item full of absurdities. But when the missing pages were put back in their proper place, the information that seemed like arrogant fabrications became a riddle. Each stroke painted a beautiful masterpiece. Before my regression, I was at the 4th Fang level in tactics and high ranking among the graduating swordsmen in terms of aura. I will become as strong as I was before my regression at the age of 15. Because of his intense focus, Viker completely lost track of time. He had spent the entire day poring over every page of the book. And by the time dawn broke, he had memorized the sacred text to the point where he could recite it backward. After checking that there was no presence of guards around, Viker decided to test what he had learned from the sacred text. Right now, Viker couldn't reach the 10th Fang with this child's body, but he could absolutely reach the 5th Fang, something he couldn't touch in his previous life. Viker slowly closed his eyes and entered his consciousness space. Before him appeared a tall, blurry figure. Without a doubt, that was the obsession he had held onto for so long. Viker was now enveloped by a blood-red aura, the symbol of the Baskerville clan's swordsmanship. After opening his eyes, Viker enveloped his arm with a thick layer of aura and used it in place of a sword. He successively executed sword techniques from the 1st Fang to the 4th Fang. Viker's eyes were filled with hatred and determination to take revenge. Before his regression, he had lived a shallow life. He had been able to achieve the title of top-ranked graduating swordsman after working hard, but then he was looked down upon by his own family for not being able to learn higher-level sword techniques, and the only reason Viker couldn't reach the 5th Fang or higher levels was because he was an illegitimate child. He was determined not to live such a life again, and that determination transformed into a power that allowed Viker to surpass himself. He charged forward, approached the figure in his consciousness, and executed the sword technique of the 5th Fang. The figure suddenly transformed into Hugo's appearance and was then slashed into 1,000 small pieces. Viker's consciousness immediately returned to the real world. Although still slightly lacking, he had been able to use up to the 5th Fang. Viker clenched his fists and smiled with joy. It had been a long time since he had experienced this feeling again, a truly warm feeling from the bottom of his heart, a choked-up sensation. Now he just wanted to grab his sword and execute the sword techniques in his head throughout the entire history of the Baskerville clan. The fangs of a young hunting dog were growing faster than ever before, and those fangs were aiming for the throat of its own master. After his enlightenment, Viker checked the changes in his body. He had now successfully manifested the 5th Fang. If he could further enhance his mana, he would reach the milestone of power he had before his regression. Viker looked at the thick layer of aura on his hand and chuckled with satisfaction. His mana was still steadily increasing this time. Through enlightenment, it would grow in a more multidimensional way. This flowing liquefied aura was a sign of a swordmaster. It seemed he had advanced from a high-ranking elite swordsman to a low-ranking swordmaster, a level he had only reached at the age of 30 in his previous life. Now he had achieved it at just 8 years old. A swordmaster was a completely different level compared to an elite swordsman. Thanks to the aura transforming into a liquid state, the density of aura was enhanced and the ability to change its state was also less restricted. I have also obtained better swordsmanship than what I used before my regression. This swordsmanship will not stop at the 5th Fang, it can even reach the 10th Fang. It possesses limitless potential. The Fang strike technique I learned before would allow me to become stronger and faster, but it limited my growth potential. Compared to it, Hidden Fang is a perfect swordsmanship that combines both offense and defense and has no growth limit. If I focus on learning it, I can even face a mid-level swordmaster. I will have a 100% win rate if I assassinate, and 50% if I confront them directly. The problem is, how much should I reveal to Hugo? The strength I show cannot be too great, nor can it be too small. I need to give him some things that he needs, so that I can obtain even more benefits. After careful consideration, Viker took a magnifying glass out of his pocket and then placed it by the window along with the sacred text, Hidden Fang. The sunlight shining through the magnifying glass quickly increased the temperature and ignited the sacred text. Viker then gave a sinister smile. In this way, he would completely prevent Hugo and his hunting dogs from reaching the 10th Fang. The only one who could reach that level could only be him. After the sacred text was almost destroyed, 2 new guards discovered the abnormality and hurriedly ran over. "What's that smell, young Master Viker? What have you done?" Viker turned on his actor mode and appeared pitiful and innocent. He scratched his head while looking down. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I accidentally burned the book because I carelessly left the magnifying glass on top of it. I will go see the butler if this needs to be reported." The two guards, immediately afraid of being reprimanded by the butler, hurriedly spoke up. "Good heavens, young master. You don't need to feel guilty about this at all. It's our fault for not paying enough attention to you, young master." Moreover, thankfully, only one book was burned. Seeing this, Viker changed the subject. "Those books are too messy. Aren't the knights busy with the conflict with the Mogu clan at the gem mine? You probably don't have any free time to worry about such small matters, do you? So it's best to just pretend this never happened?" Before the two guards could say anything more, Viker turned and left. Before leaving, he didn't forget to reiterate, "So let's keep this secret between us. You must be very busy. Sorry for wasting your time." And so Viker had successfully manipulated their minds. The two guards were now even grateful to him. Young Master Viker is such a good person. He even thinks about the feelings of us servants. What a respectable young man. Viker used to be exactly like those two, a blindly loyal hunting dog, but now everything was different. Viker would be the one to take advantage of these hunting dogs. After leaving the Grand Library, Viker immediately went to see Hugo. As soon as they met, Hugo asked if his son had learned anything. When Viker replied that he had learned a little, Hugo became extremely interested and asked further, "What did you sense and perceive in the library?" Viker pretended to be naive and described something warm and sharp, but also soft like ocean waves. "I felt something like that." Hugo and Barry Mull froze instantly. Could the words Viker described be about aura? Aura is proof that a person has truly stepped into the world of swordsmanship. Even geniuses who train tirelessly need to be at least 15 years old to enter the realm of low-grade sword mastery. Hugo was a bit skeptical because after all this child was only 8 years old. He asked Viker to show him what he had just described. Viker happily accepted this request. After all, this was his very purpose, to obtain even more resources. A while later, at the Baskerville clan's arena, all the young hunting dogs were gathered, and in the middle of the arena stood Viker Basker. Vin calm with his sword in hand, he was preparing to face a magical beast to prove his abilities. The young hunting dogs didn't understand what was happening and kept whispering among themselves. Only Hugo was interested in this fight. He had personally chosen a suitable opponent for his beloved son. After the match began, the massive iron gate slowly opened. From within, an ost completely bound by chains was led out. This monster had been starved for 5 days, so it was in an extremely hungry state. It would risk its life to eliminate the opponent before it. The young hunting dogs widened their eyes in astonishment upon seeing the ost. An ost? Isn't that too much for an 8 years old to fight? Usually you have to be 15 years old to be strong enough to do this. But because countless guardian knights were watching around, everyone felt somewhat less worried. After Hugo signaled, the iron chains and muzzle of the ost were removed. It immediately entered a frenzied state and charged forward, attacking Viker. Viker calmly stood still in place at this moment. He timed it perfectly, and as the ost attacked, he swung his sword, severing its arm. Even the older hunting dogs were dumbfounded by this move. They couldn't believe an 8 years old could do such a thing. Before the ost could even react after being slashed, Viker took another leg. It collapsed to the ground and looked at Viker fearfully. Viker looked at the monster on the ground with the contemptuous gaze of a strong person. It's shocked that it's bleeding. For the first time, its rare skill super regeneration isn't even activating. There was no way a rank C monster could stand against a rank B+ like a hellhound, and the skill stored in New Zealbab's second slot had taken effect. The hellhound's blood skill caused the wounds to bleed continuously and prevented regeneration. The stands were in an uproar. Everyone kept talking to each other. "That's really an 8 years old boy. How did that kid do that with that body? He didn't even use mana. How is that possible?" Only Hugo remained silent, quietly observing. Seeing this expression, Viker understood Hugo's underlying thoughts. He was thinking that Viker still hadn't shown him what he had comprehended in the library. "Well, then I'll show him as he wishes." Hugo's expression immediately changed. He was astonished by what he was seeing. Viker raised his sword forward and enveloped it in a blood-red aura. The ost had just struggled to stand up when it was stabbed through the head. Poor ost, it didn't know who the real monster was. Hugo nearly lost control of his emotions and shot out of his chair. He had never seen a young hunting dog this talented. Barry Mull carefully examined the scene and assessed, "That is the aura of a low-ranking elite swordsman. Congratulations, family head. An outstanding genius of this generation has appeared. Even searching through all the clans in the Empire, they would never find such a prodigy." But Hugo immediately interrupted. "Stop it, Barry." "Maul. Look closely. There's something strange about that. The Ost's special ability is super regeneration, but this Ost is bleeding. Non-stop. The brat only won because this Ost had become too weak, despite saying this Barry Mole had served Hugo for too long to understand just how delighted he was to have such a hunting dog in his grasp. Just when everyone thought it was over, Viker suddenly spoke up. "Father, do we have any monsters stronger than that Ost?" The other young hunting dogs were all thinking, "This kid is crazy. Isn't this already enough?" But in Viker's mind, there was a different plan. "It's best if I reveal just enough strength for now. If I'm lucky, my achievements will be recognized and I'll have a chance to break away from Hugo. I might get sent to the wilderness or recruited into the academy, for example." Immediately after his son's request, Hugo smiled with amusement and said, "It seems that the Ost that we had to travel to the far reaches to capture wasn't enough to satisfy my son's hunger. Was it? But there's a point to that. The boy is still at an age where he needs real combat experience." Hugo then asked the butler, "It seems that when we conquered the barbarians recently, we captured something for experimentation, didn't we?" Barry Mole immediately replied, "Yes, that's right. There is one left. It seems very agitated, as it hasn't been fed for a long time." Upon witnessing the next monster being brought into the arena, the entire stand fell silent. It was actually a giant troll. The number of iron chains used to bind this monster was far greater than that of the Ost. Facing such a ferocious monster, Viker not only showed no fear, but even appeared excited. He asked Hugo if he could start right away. After Hugo agreed, the iron chains restraining the troll were released. Viker didn't miss a moment and charged forward to attack immediately. Seeing this, the troll raised its massive fist and punched down at the ground. Compared to its enormous size, the troll's speed was quite agile. Luckily, Viker managed to jump behind the troll to avoid the attack. If he had been even a little slower, he would have been turned into mincemeat. Viker didn't seize this opportunity to attack, but quickly retreated to increase the distance. Seeing this, the other young hunting dogs were confused and shouted loudly. It was so close there was an opening just now, so why didn't he attack? But Hugo appreciated this good decision. That troll has remarkably high regenerative abilities, so if you can't inflict a fatal wound with a single move, you're just wasting energy. Therefore, you need a strategy to hunt a troll. Viker was now both dodging attacks and trying to get close to the troll to deliver a decisive blow. The other young hunting dogs now all acknowledged his talent. He dodges every move so closely. Is he trying to bind the troll can? An 8-year-old child have such judgment. So this is the real genius. But from the beginning, until now, Viker was just acting. He could completely evade every attack without any pressure. Viker could easily kill something like this troll if he revealed his true power, but that would only make things more complicated. He needed to kill it as naturally as possible. The best way would be to use the troll's own force against it when it attacked after a while of dodging. Viker finally waited for the right opportunity. When the troll revealed an opening, he rushed forward and slashed a long gash across its shoulder. The troll immediately collapsed in pain. Seeing this, the crowd continued to discuss. The troll got slashed. Even so, it'll recover right away, unless you kill it instantly in one move. Just as I thought, it's impossible to kill a troll using the first fang in the Baskerville clan's tactics. But an 8-year-old doing this much is still impressive. Of course, Viker knew it was impossible to cut through the troll's thick skin with the first fang. If he used Nuzilbab's skill, he would only have to wait a bit for the troll to die, but that would be pointless. Just at this moment, Hugo spoke up. "You can stop now. If you continue, it will be very dangerous." But before he could finish speaking, Viker interrupted. "I'm almost there. I think if I fight a little longer, I'll realize something. If I can't defeat it in the next move, I'll give up the fight." Seeing his son's determination, Hugo allowed the match to continue. Viker then held his sword firmly in front of him and entered a state of focus. His entire body was enveloped in a blood-red aura, as well as an intense killing intent. At this moment, Viker was only thinking about how much power he should reveal. The answer had already been decided. What he wanted others to see was the prospect of himself having an epiphany and leveling up during the fight. Viker was very much looking forward to Hugo's reaction after seeing what he was about to do. Seeing Viker standing still, the troll frantically charged forward to attack. By the time it realized the danger, it was too late. From beneath the ground, a pair of blood-red eyes and sharp fangs appeared, biting off the troll's head in an instant. Everyone who witnessed it was so astonished that they couldn't utter a word that was understandable. Within the Baskerville clan's blood sword swordsmanship, a person's life is based on a formula. Around the age of 15, they can channel mana into a sword. At that time, most hunting dogs will learn the first fang of the Baskerville sword art. But for the first time in the Baskerville clan's history, an 8-year-old child had achieved what his peers achieved at 18. The second fang from this point on, an anomaly had been born. Viker, after his victory, feigned surprise at his own strength. He turned towards Hugo and gave an innocent, wide-eyed smile. "Haha, I won." But Hugo was utterly astonished and speechless. He couldn't even bring himself to believe what he had just seen. A week later, inside the Baskerville clan's dining hall, Viker was sitting toying with his plate of food. No matter how many times he ate it, he could never get used to this random stew. And despite not doing anything, the people around him actively avoided him. Viker then happily recalled Hugo's utter bewilderment from before. The strength Viker publicly revealed was the second fang of Baskerville, the power of a mid-tier elite swordsman. His true strength was the fifth fang of Baskerville, but quite weak, approximately the strength of a low-tier swordmaster. If he included the C+-grade super regeneration skill from the troll he had just obtained, he would definitely be stronger than an average graduating swordsman. But the price to pay was this endless appetite. While Viker was deep in thought, the three Baskerville brothers appeared behind him. Viker immediately released an overwhelming killing intent and threatened. "Have I been too lenient with you guys?" Before the three brothers, recalling terrifying memories, hurriedly explained. No, it's not like that. We just wanted to say that when you killed CBZ and the troll, you looked really cool." Being praised as cool by three burly men almost made Viker choke. His whole body broke out in goosebumps as he worried about his rear end. Viker decided to just punch each of them once and figure things out later. Just at this moment, Butler Barry Mall appeared and announced that Hugo wanted to see him. Viker was quite surprised by this. He didn't know why Hugo would suddenly want to see him. In Hugo's office, the deputy head of the Mogu clan, Adob Mogu, was holding a meeting. Adob was the first to speak. "Lord Hugo, you still look the same as ever. I hope the annual event won't end with too many problems this year." Hugo calmly replied, This joint training has ended without too many incidents, hasn't it?" Adob Mogu then asked, "Last year, both our clans had people severely injured, didn't they? If that's not a problem, then what is?" Hugo, feeling provoked, retorted somewhat sharply. A small scratch turned into a severe injury. "It seems the descendants of the Mogu clan are exaggerating a bit too much." Adob didn't back down and immediately retorted, "Well, perhaps that's because our Mogu clan is a noble and elegant family." The two men were incredibly tense, as if they were about to start fighting. So the prestigious Mage clan, the Mogu clan, and the strongest blood swordsman clan, the Baskerville clan, initially, these two clans didn't have such frequent conflicts. Magic and swordsmanship are things that exist to complement each other. These were the words of the Emperor from 2 generations ago. According to the Emperor's decree, the Baskerville clan and the Mogu clan began to implement joint training. Only children aged 8 to 15 were allowed to participate, and the annual event of both clans began with a very good atmosphere. But at one point, a dispute arose between the territories of the Baskerville and Mogu clans regarding the sovereignty of a ruby ore. Then the relationship between the two clan heads went awry. However, due to the Emperor's orders, the training had to continue. Therefore, not the Mogu clan head, but his younger brother Adob, began meeting with the Baskerville clan in the role of deputy clan head and chief representative. After exchanging greetings, Adob immediately probed for recent information. "Ah, that's right. I heard that a rising star has appeared in the Baskerville clan, a once-in-a-century genius. A talent from the Baskerville clan would be a great fortune for the Empire." Upon hearing this, Hugo couldn't help but smile with joy. This is not something you should be focusing your attention on. This surprised Adob a bit. He didn't expect a cunning bastard like Hugo to actually react to praise about his son. Unable to be outdone, Adob also began to flex. "We could also call this double the good fortune. A genius has also appeared in the Mogu clan. Come in, Camus, and say hello." Right after that, a beautiful girl with bright red hair opened the door and walked in, sitting beside Adob. Adob placed his hand on his granddaughter's shoulder and introduced her. "This is my sister's daughter. Her name is Camus, darling. You should greet the head of the family." Camus immediately spoke up. "Sir, you are the thief who stole our ruby ore, right? Please return it to us, that ruby ore." Being called a thief made Hugo extremely displeased. His eyes turned red and his whole body emitted a murderous aura. Adob quickly stopped his granddaughter to prevent a conflict between the two clans. But children can't lie, so Camus continued. But that's what you said, sir. You told me that the despicable man with the mustache stole our ruby ore like a thief. I heard you say it in the carriage about 1 hour and 42 minutes ago. Adob turned to explain. Ahem, it seems there has been some misunderstanding here. Hugo, though very angry, tried to stay calm and retorted a little pup. Like you wouldn't know anything, you don't need to try to defend the Mogu clan's teaching strategies to me. Indeed, the calf doesn't fear the tiger. Camus looked straight at Hugo and shouted, Return the ruby ore to me. I can't even proceed with my research because I'm missing the ruby ore.